Hello everyone and thank you for tuning into Wowhead Weekly number 54, 2 weeks over a year. Crazy, crazy stuff. We are super excited for today's show. We have a lot to talk about with all of the nerfs that happened to Hellfire Citadel and time walking and upcoming stuff. So without further ado, I want to introduce my lovely co-host, Wowhead Site Manager Perculia.
Hey everyone, I am very excited about the Burning Crusade time walking that is happening this weekend, so expect us to talk a lot about nostalgia things, what it was like back in the day, and about all the cool items you can get with Time Warp badges. And if you like the leggings last week, we have even more cool leggings to show you this week as well. So
Not in the same manner as last week. Last week we learned we aren't exactly leggings models. I was dying laughing when I was editing the video because it was just like frame after frame of uncoordinated accidents about to happen. So we prepared in advance.
We have all these wires, like you don't see them, and trying to move with all these wires.
Yeah, and you're like connected to the computer with the it's just, it was a mess. It was a mess. Yeah. But we do have a lot to talk about today. I'm super excited. Of course, Burning Crusade time walking is going on right now. It started September 30th, and it goes through October 5th, and there are 5 dungeons you can do. There is Alcatraz, which you can earn 35 Time Warped badges for completing, Black Morass, which you can earn 30 Time Warped badges for completing, Mana Tombs, which you can get 35, Shattered Halls, which you can get 35, and Slave Pens, which you can get 30. And it's crazy going back through these instances. I get so many, like, feelings.
I know some people are saying that some pulls are difficult, but they are way easier than they used to be back in the day. Like Shattered Halls, that used to be this 55-minute timed run, and it was really intense. Yeah. And there were assassins that would come out.
Well, everything in Burning Crusade was intense. Everything was. Yes. I mean, hunters had to ice things. Mages had to
CC was so important.
CC was a thing. Like, nobody really uses CC anymore except for in, like, BGs and once in a while in very specific pulls. But it was, like, an every pull thing in Burning Crusade. It was really intense. The one that I noticed, what's the one with all the broken guys? And you go in and there's, like, immediately a lobster. And then you have to, like, kind of...
Slave Pens?
Is it Slave? Yes, it's Slave Pens. Yeah. Slave Pens is the worst time walking instance ever. Because no matter what, once you get to the upward bridge ramp thing, somebody pulls the pack. And then dies, and then can't get back, and then you have to have the whole group go back to the beginning. That instance, man. I don't even remember that. That one seems harder now than it did then, because at least back in Burning Crusade, people knew that was a difficult pull and weren't so, like...
There were so many difficult pulls, though. Like, I remember between the second and third boss, you could get feared really easily into other patrols, and I believe that they healed, and that was really bad.
Yeah.
And then the naturalist that you try to rescue right before the last boss, he was super squishy, and all the lobsters would enrage and pull other lobsters, and he would just die, and that was bad.
Yeah. But I like, it's just so, like, when I was just talking about my sister who just kind of got really into WoW recently out of nowhere. We went back and did Burning Crusade instances, and she was like, wow, these are a lot harder than the Draenor ones. It was funny. It was funny, but I enjoy it, and it's like a nice nostalgia trip, and of course there's a ton of rewards you can get. I want to make sure I'm going in order. Before we talk about the rewards.
We should talk about how time walking works. So all the difficult stuff was back in the day. And now with time walking, for between the 30th and the 5th, you can queue up with players that are level 71 or higher. Your gear inside time walking is scaled down to item level 95. So that's meant to sort of be what you would be if you were doing this back in Burning Crusade, but of course you have all your extra talents and, you know, specializations. This is a really fun time to bring out, you know, your favorite old legendaries and trinkets that have unique procs, because those, you know, they scale really well. So, like, anything unique from Dragon Soul or Warglades of Azeroth or Valinir, all that's really fun to use. And if you're not sure what your current gear looks like scaled down, if you visit any Wowhead item pages or a list of items, there is a BC time walking checkbox that you can click, and then it shows you the stats of your gear in time walking. And the basic reward you can get is if you complete 5 time walking dungeons for the A Burning Path Through Time quest, you receive a Seal of Inevitable Fate, which is good for bonus rolls, as well as a normal mode Hellfire Citadel item appropriate for your loot spec.
I want to gripe about this for a second. So last week's event was the Mythic Dungeons event. And you get a piece of heroic loot for that, but then you get a normal piece for time walking, and I really don't understand why that is. It should all be normal or all heroic or based on your progression. It seems so bizarre to me that...
Yeah, I think they were trying to make... I know in an interview they were talking about the mythic dungeons maybe giving items that had that extra layer of Warforged, and that never happened. So I kind of feel that, I don't know, mythic maybe needs some more oomph to separate it. Because if time walking is meant to be for people that are just catching up and starting 100, and then mythic is meant to be for people that don't need the epics.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to have, like, the bonus thing, though, and then have the bonuses just be so, like... Maybe instead of giving maybe give the Seal of Inevitable Fate and then an extra, like, 500 Time Warped badges then, instead of, why make it a Hellfire Citadel item at all?
Yeah.
It's just
especially
strange.
Because, the Time Warp items are item level 675 already, so that's... Yeah, that's nearly, they're like 675 versus 690.
Yeah, and for someone, I mean, for people who are geared beyond that, like, that almost de-incentivizes it for me, because, like, I have I mean, I'm certainly not an elitist or anything like that, but I guess I have alts that could use a piece of normal gear, but I wouldn't want to go on my main, which they should want people to go on their mains and want people, which in that case, I'm not saying it has to be a mythic piece of gear or even heroic, but why not just make it relevant to time walking instead of...
Yeah. Or if they did want to do the cache, it could be something similar to how things like the High Mall or the Foundry missions or the Shipyard ones are handled. Yeah,
like how it's relevant to your progression. I would personally like that, but you can't always get what you want. Of course, we were just talking about the Time Warp badges, and you can earn them all different ways. You can get 5 Time Warped badges for killing each boss, except for the end boss, who rewards 10 Time Warped badges. If you complete a random Time Walking dungeon, you will get 10 Time Warped badges. If you finish a Time Walking dungeon when your role is called to arms, you'll get an additional 50 Time Warped badges. And then, of course, there is the once per event quest, which you get when you kill the last boss of your first time walking dungeon of the event. You'll get an item called the Swirling Vial, and when you right click it, it'll accept a quest. And if you hand the quest in, and it hands into Kupri and Shatrith, who is the time warped time walking vendor, you'll get 500 time warped badges, which is super cool because that's a ton. That's so many.
And you can do that on all of your alts as well.
Yeah. So if you like, it's like Perk had said a couple weeks ago, if you're looking for a bunch of the rewards off of the Time Warp Badges vendor, what we would recommend doing is whatever character you're going to play the most, that's the character you should save up for the mount, and then just do runs on your alt like once or twice, like just a couple times, because that 500 is enough to get the ever-shifting mirror. It's close to being able to get one of the other toys, the one that turns you into a broken. So it's not necessary to just grind out so many on one character. If you have a couple alts that can do this, especially considering you don't need to be 100. You just need to be 71 or higher. So you really have a lot of opportunities to get that 500 on each of your alts. I mean, depending on how many alts that you have. And there are a bunch of new things to spend Time Warp badges on, which is very exciting. Again, these items are sold by Kupri and Shatrith, and you want to talk a little bit about it, Perk?
Yeah, sure. So these items, for the most part, are different than the ones from the Wrath event. So, you can get armor that scales up to your level at the time of purchase. So, for example, if you're level 100, you would get an eye level 675 item. These are different than heirlooms in that they don't scale. Like, if you buy something at 90 and then you level up to 100, your gear doesn't level up with you. So it's kind of, Diablo style. You get the version of the item appropriate to the level you're looting it at. And there are different slots than the Wrath vendor. You can get weapons, belts, legs, trinkets, and helms. The costs usually range between 25 and 100 badges. And some of these are really popular items for transmog, like the Mazthoril Honor Shield, some of the Sunwell-themed weapons, some of the Troll-themed items from, Zul'Aman. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to spend badges on this instead just for fun, you can find something new as well, but it's also really nice items for leveling, or if you're a fresh 100 as well for your eye level to get into raids like LFR. Mm-hmm. There's also some cooking recipes, the Barrel of Fish and Creative Meat, and these are really fun. They're 25 each, And they're more interesting than the Wrath ones, I think, because they have a chance to contain rare recipes, and the Barrel of Fish is the only way you can get broiled bloodfin and skullfish soup, and the Creative Meat is the only source for the Spicy Hot Towel book. So if you're doing any cooking achievements and you want the chef's title, definitely check these out. There are heirloom token upgrades. These are not very, you can get them at the Wrath event as well, but if you want to get any stage 1 or 2 upgrades for armor or weapons, you can spend badges on that. And by far the coolest item, video incoming, is the Reigns of the Eclipse Dragonhawk mount. This is 5,000 badges, and it looks like the Dragonhawks from Eclipse on Point in Shadow Moon Valley, which is the location for one of the more interesting quests tied to lore and, you know, just the storyline in that area. So
it's pink and purple.
Yeah, it's also pink and purple. You can see what your character looks like in the dressing room with it on Wowhead, so you can see if it matches your transmog if you like the animations. I think it's super pretty. And if you don't like that mount, you can also save badges for the Wrath version, which is Reigns of the Ironbound Wraith Charger. That's also 5,000, and you can get that when Ozin is in Dalaran for the Wrath weekend. So, like, every 2 months, the Wrath one or the BC one will cycle in, and every month or so, you know, there'll be a different event up. I know you like pets. Do you want to talk about the pets?
Sure, I can talk about the pets. And it's funny because I spent a lot of time farming these out to find out that they're a little bit easily obtained these days. But with 150 badges, you can obtain the Bag of Fishing Treasures, which can contain a baby crocodile pet, which you could previously only get from the quest Crocolists in the City. There's Chuck, Muckbreath, Snarly, and Toothy. Muckbreath, Snarly, and Toothy. They're cute little fat alligator babies. They're super cute. This bag also has a chance for weird and fun items like the ornate drinking stein and the antique silver cufflinks, which you can use if you have a bank alt. My bank alt is wearing them. I really like to dress my bank alt like a gentleman.
Same with mine. She's got the lovely black.
Does she have the monocle?
Yep, she has the monocle.
The best part is that my bank character is an orc hunter, and she has a pig pet named Cash Money, and then she's wearing the monocle in one of the lovely dresses, which is not lovely on an orc by any means. It's hysterical. Yeah. You can also get reputation tokens, which are 50 Timewarped badges for every 500 rep. This is a really good way to gain rep, especially if you're like a completionist or if you're working on the beloved title. The Cenarian Expedition rep counts towards the Guardian of Cenarius title, as well as the Cenarian War Hippogriff mount. And each faction also has a unique PvP set if you're interested in transmog, but a lot of the BC factions had mounts, and not just like one mount, like a bunch of mounts. Right? And those badges you can buy for, like, can you buy those for, like, any of the other reps?
Yeah, you can buy badges for the other reps. I don't think that the rewards are as exciting as Cenarian Expedition, but they have lots of other things, such as old recipes that you can get. Like, some of the recipes... It won't count towards, like, the Shatari Skyguard or anything like that, though? No, not those. So it's not the fun ones.
Well, dang!
Yeah. I think, yeah, so there's other reps like Ogre Law, which don't count in the Skyguard, but if you want to get Cenarian Expedition, Honor Hold, Thrallmar, Keepers of Time...
If you are a Guardian Druid, you have to get the Guardian of Cenarius title.
You need that.
It's so cool. It's such a druidy title. It's really, really neat. And I really love the Hippogriff mount that you get with that, too. That was actually the first rep mount I ever bought on my first character ever. I've got a lot of feelings.
It seemed really cool at the time. Like, a lot of people now in Draenor, they're used to every rep at Exalted, you can buy the mount, or at Revered, you can buy the pet with Golden Hexus, but this was a really big deal back at the time to actually have reputation vendors and to have those vendors sell you different things.
Yeah, and money was a lot more scarce back then. Like, I remember Epic Flying, everybody always had to, like, borrow money from their friends to, like, pool for someone to get Epic Flying, because it was just really expensive. Like, people didn't have that kind of money back then. And
then just to buy a mount for fun, it's like, wow, I just have all this money I'm bleeding.
Yeah, I want to say that mount was like 1,250 gold too, which seems really cheap now, but at the time it was like every penny I had. And I was so proud, and I just flew around in my Torn looking ridiculous.
Yeah, another really powerful thing about reputations is that you needed to hit Revered to buy a key that allowed you to do heroics, and every person in your party needed to have that key. So you had to do a lot of normal mode dungeon grinding because there weren't as many daily quests back then.
Yeah.
And then you had to buy those keys and make sure everyone else had those keys, and then you could finally do the heroic versions of those instances.
Yeah, things were real back then.
Yeah.
It was hard out in the streets. Now, aside from the rep stuff, you can also buy some toys. We talked about it earlier. The Mark of the Ash Tongue will run you 1,250 badges, and it makes you look like one of those broken temple attunement guys that you get the disguise to get into
Black Temple.
And they're also they're weird looking dudes. I think they're in slave pens too. The broken guys. They're the slaves,
they're sort of like the Zangarmarsh, Nagrand, Orobor outpost people.
Yeah, they look like Draenei's that were like exposed to radiation or something.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much their basic story. Like they were Draenei but got splintered off. Yeah.
Good. Good. So if you want to look like one of the broken guys, you can get that toy. And then there is the ever shifting mirror, which check it out.
It's super cool. It's a really cool item. It lets you travel between Outland...
Hang on. Wait, hold on. You talk, and then I'll put this on. That's got audio on it. You can't hear it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should have warned you.
The ever-shifting mirror lets you travel between Outland and Draenor. When you use it, you see hidden portals that are only visible when you're phased. There are around 17 known locations so far. So if you use it and you're not by a location, you'll just see this purple blob float in the direction of the nearest portal. And it makes traveling between continents a lot faster. You don't have to go back to a major city and take the Hellfire Peninsula portal. You can just go from, like, Old Shattrath to New Shattrath. And if you don't care about practical travel, it's still a really fun way to compare the locations and see how they've changed in different timelines. And we actually wrote a whole article on this comparing old and new screenshots and the lore behind each, like, here's Magtheridon's lair, and now it's Hellfire Citadel, or one portal is right outside your garrison, but in Old Shadowmoon Valley, it's actually the path going to Legion Hold, which was the big center for the Burning Legion.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see what's, like, pretty similar, and to see what's, really drastically changed, or like Black Temple versus the Temple of Karabor. That's another really big different one.
There's another thing that's worth mentioning about that mirror too, is that you can use it every 15 seconds. It's got a really short cooldown, and you can use it in combat. So if you pull like a million guys and you're like, oh, I'm definitely gonna die, you can use that item, jump through the portal, it takes you out of combat, and then you can take the same portal back and all the guys have dropped off of you. So it's
I love the really short cooldown.
Yeah, it's a really cheesy way to get out of combat. I took a little excerpt from the video that we put on Wowhead. Yeah. There is audio on this. I'm sorry. I should have said something because it was like two people talking all at once, and one of them was me, so it was annoying. This item lets you quickly teleport between similar locations in Draenor and Outland. If you aren't close enough to one of the locations, you'll see a little trail of magic that will lead you to the next closest portal. Once you are close enough, click on the portal to be teleported between Draenor and Outland and vice versa. This item only has a 15-second cooldown and can be used while in combat. And worth reminding you guys, you only have to do one time walking to get that. That only costs 500, which is how much you get from the swirling vial. So it's completely worth getting. It'll take you all of a half an hour, and it's so cool. Yeah,
that was the first thing I got.
Yeah.
We also I wrote a little time walking article today, since I was, nostalgia. I wrote about the ever-shifting mirror, and then I wrote a little thing about how all these dungeons were really important for Burning Crusade attunements, because if you played back in the day, you remember doing all these dungeons and how difficult they were, but if you played afterwards, you didn't have to deal with things like really complicated attunements to be able just to zone into a raid.
Yeah.
So we've got the post up on Wowhead, and it's just, looking back, like, you had to do pretty much every dungeon was required in some form to get into that instance. That was really intense.
And what was crazy is when they first nerfed it, they just nerfed it so that one person in your group had to do it. So it wasn't like, even after the initial nerf, you still needed someone to have done all of that hard work in order to do the raids. So things were hard back in the day, man.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the CC, I mean, you're like, oh, Warlocks have fear, but you could get feared into other mobs, or like Rogues had Sap, but Sap had a chance to miss at the time.
Yeah,
and there were these
and
AoE
then you were
cleaves.
in big trouble if Sap.
Yeah. And they had AoE cleaves, so there were some mobs you couldn't attack. And if you look at a lot of Wowhead comments back in Burning Crusade, it's like, oh, we needed a mage for this, and then we brought our fire resist gear for this trash mob in Arcatraz, and melee aren't good, and we had 2 healers, and on the last boss, because he does this dot that CCs you, and it's like,
yeah, and there was no dual spec back then, so it wasn't like you could just bring someone and be like, okay, go, whatever. You'd have to have, this is why when talent trees were different back in the day, you could have these people that were kind of like hybrid.
Exactly.
Which you obviously that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, outside of people who play like Shakaden or like, an aggressive disc priest. But
that's why CC talents were so useful as well, because, trash was a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, if you play back then, you remember finally learning the trash, and then the first mobs would respawn after you wipe, and then you had to do all the trash again, even though the bosses were dead.
I'm really surprised that I guess it doesn't not make sense, but I was really surprised that in Burning Crusade Time Walking we didn't see Magister Ceres, because I think that was one of the most like iconic instances of the time, and by far I think everybody would agree that was the hardest one.
I'm surprised they don't do that, because like Sunwell, you'd want to show off that area, how nice it was.
Oh yeah, and it was a gorgeous instance, and it had all the very like, I don't know, it reminded me of like very I can't even like put my mind on what I'm trying to say, but just like very almost like Arabian, and it had all like the big drapes and tapestries, and they were all sitting around in hookahs, and I think there's one room that's an orgy room. I don't know what's going on there, but it's
I remember that. And then at the end, you could get the, he dropped like the mount, and then I think he dropped the pet.
A pet.
Yeah, and epic. I just really like the architecture there, and I think that they wanted to pick one dungeon from each reputation. So there was like, one Hellfire one Coilfang one. And it would be cool if Sunwell and that, sort of architecture was represented as
I would love
Maybe
for them
they'll do another version. I'd love for them to add more.
I'd really like for them to add just time walking as a permanent difficulty instead of it being a holiday, just something that you could do whenever for, like, fun vanity rewards and, like, reps, and just there's so much they could do with it that would add. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but I'm very pro them making obsolete content relevant again, because these are things that, like, it's crazy for me to think that people didn't experience that at the time. So it's like, it's twofold, because there are people like you and I who are like, oh, I remember this is so awesome, this was so great. But then there are people who this is brand new content for them. And
there are dozens of dungeons, and like, do they just make them so people would do them for a few months and then ignore them for years?
And
that's not very efficient.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that you go in and be able to get all of this gear and just be, you know what I mean? Like, but I think people really appreciate vanity rewards, and I think people really appreciate achievements and just being able to do completionist type activities in like those smaller groups that are easier to get together. And I think that could you imagine if they did time walking raids? They would be immensely popular.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if every week there's a different type of time walking, because right now the time walking weeks feel very detailed. Like, you can do things with friends, you can equip your group finder, you can get vanity items, you can get badges, and then you have something like the arena weekend, which is just like, hey, be miserable and do 10 skirmishes.
Yeah,
so
I don't participate.
I feel that the time walking weekends are more of a holiday feel, and
when you richer. Have you been to the vendor today?
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's just, everyone is mobbed.
It's insane.
So like, if there was like a Kata weekend, a BC, like Wrath, if they mixed it up and they always had a different weekend up and different things you could get, I think that would be fun.
People would be so, especially if they did like, if they did a vanilla week and maybe they weren't always the same 5 dungeons. Maybe it was different 5 dungeons and then one time walking raid from that time period. And it was like LFR difficulty. It doesn't have to be super in-depth, like, intense or
I don't think went very well with like, hey, this is exactly the same, everyone. You get to do trash for 2 hours.
Molten Core was awful.
Maybe they'll learn from it. Optimist.
Molten Core was terrible. The Molten Core LFR was, thank you for reminding me of that 2 weeks of misery, because that was It was like, I just want them out. I just want them out. Maybe I'll go back and get the pet. And then you get to the end and you're like, I'm never doing this again.
Exactly.
It was awful. It was really, really bad. But I would still love to see it. I think there are some people who never really got to experience, like, particularly I think Wrath of the Lich King had some great raids, like Ulduar and ICC were amazing raids. I actually really enjoyed Trial of the Crusader. Like, I thought that was or Trial of the Champions. Which one was it? Trial of the Grand Crusade. Trial of the Grand Crusade. That was an awesome raid. I liked that it had, I liked the arena style. I liked that it didn't
I was writing that up when the Hearthstone expansion came out because there's just so much lore behind that.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like, you did the raid and the dungeon and the dailies and there was, like, pets and gear and there was a little zone and it all fit together and it felt very organic. It didn't feel like, oh, here's this raid in the middle of nowhere with made-up lore. It's like, oh, everything sort of supported this world that you were now going to do a crusade.
And it was so nice, too, because that was when they very first introduced, that was when LFG was, like, brand new, and it was, like, the coolest
and they had the 3
thing.
different tiers.
Yep, and they had the different tiers, and I don't know, I just thought that was a really well-executed, like, instance dungeon patch. And I would love to see more stuff like that. Like, even in Wrath of the Lich King, they just did a really good job with that kind of stuff. Because when ICC came out, they had the 3 that were, like, they were harder than heroic dungeons.
And the super awesome weapon that you could get that required you to do those, the Keldalar.
Yeah.
I would love to see, something that I was thinking about when I wrote the BC Dungeon post was that it would be cool if there were more questlines like that ICC weapon questline where you could maybe do the BC attunement questline and you wouldn't get, Hand of Adal or Champion of the Naru, but you'd get a little something to encourage people to, go do that tour of the content and get a sense of what it was like back in the day.
Yeah.
And have some more, like, replay value outside of that time.
That's something I would really love to see more of in WoW, is just replay value in general. Because people, I think there's a couple reasons why people get burnt out on World of Warcraft. I think a big one is that there isn't a big feel of replayability. Like, even a guild that downs, say the guild's goal, talking is hard, my goodness. Say that a guild's goal for a patch is like, oh, I want to down the last boss on Heroic. So basically you want to clear on Heroic. Once you're down him once on Heroic, it doesn't feel as good the second time. And it doesn't feel as good the third time. It certainly doesn't feel as good the fourth time. And if it's a guild that doesn't have, say, mythic aspirations, then what do you do for the next 6 months?
Yeah, and there's so much content that's out there that, feels, it's ignored because doesn't have the best gear, or people don't even realize that this old stuff exists.
Yeah, even something like ICC or Ulduar. Like, I know for a fact, like, my guild, we just started doing mythics. We downed Mythic Hellfire Assault last night. But if something were a scaled up version of ICC or Ulduar, or a scaled down version of us could go in there and actually do it as a raid, because right now you can solo those. There is no point whatsoever in bringing 10 or 15 people to those raids, because everything dies so quickly that it's just...
And I liked back when it was harder, I liked doing things like, oh, let's take 5 people and go, beat up an instance from the previous, from the previous expansion. Like, that was was kind of challenging and fun. Like, can we underman it? Let's do something with friends. But it's not very social if you're just saying, oh, I'm gonna go solo this by myself for a mount, or get on my alt that's the better spec to solo it. That's not really fun.
Yeah. So I would really love to see them do some sort of scaling up or scaling down, like scaling up of players or scaling down. No, scaling up of difficulty of old instances and raids, and scaling down of players, or vice versa, so that guilds would feel like when they got to that point of burnout, like, what can we do that's still going to be rewarding, that's still going to be challenging, that's just worth doing. And I think that, I don't want to say recycling content, because I don't think that's the right word, but just making it, giving incentive to do it.
As I've learned from writing these sort of spotlight posts, a lot of people, like, we play Burning Crusade and Wrath, but a lot of people haven't, and they're really appreciative when we explain things, and it's like, these are things that we're pointing out to players, but they don't know in game that there's all, continents, literally continents of content that they're unaware of. Yeah. And, scaling more difficulty, incentives to get players to go back and do these things, to take advantage of, all the artwork that went into it, all the lore, all the quests, all the voiceover acting. That just seems better for the health of the game if it's 10 years old and it's like, well, this dungeon will have a shelf life of, a month or 2 total. That's just really sad to think about.
That's really sad. And it's like, I got so encouraged when I heard, even though disclaimer, everything we learned at Dragon Con could be total BS. But when we heard at Dragon Con that there was a possibility of an adventure mode, in Diablo, adventure mode is where everything scales up to your level. That's what it is. And if there was a World of Warcraft where every piece of content was my level, I don't know what I would do with myself. Like, I really don't. Like, I want to go back and do the Baron's Quest now. Like, I want to do that. Like, that sounds fun to me.
Yeah, like, oh, I really like Wrath. I'll always be going and doing Wrath, similar to how you're like, oh, I really like, you know, how Act 1 looks. I'll do that in Diablo.
Yeah. It really would open up the door for a lot of people to be able to do what they want in-game. Because, like, okay, so you don't like Warlords of Draenor. To be able to be max level and go back and do things that you do like and have it be challenging and rewarding, that basically the developers don't have to make something new to keep people happy, so they can still use those resources to develop new things and new features or whatever and keep the player base like happy. I think it would be a great idea. We got really rambly there for a second. I apologize. Mostly my fault. The in-game shop in transition. The in-game shop in World of Warcraft has expanded on the character selection screen now. Just a heads up, this doesn't work in-game, but the character selection screen now allows you to purchase faction changes, race changes, appearance changes, and name changes directly from that screen. So you don't have to go to battle.net, which is pretty cool. It still will direct you in-game to go to battle.net, but you can do it from the character select screen. And this brought up a good question between me and Perk is, what do you think is, like, next for the shop? Like, where do you think it's going with the shop? Because it seems like it's constantly expanding, and they're really working on that technology and trying to keep everything condensed and internalized.
Yeah, so besides the mounts and pets that we're meant to see, I think a neat addition would be if you could gift things to others in-game.
Yes!
Because right now you can only gift things outside of game, but it would be cool if, you know, someone's like, oh, it's my birthday in Guild, and you could just... like, oh, I'll send you over a little Bright Paw pet. Yeah. And I think, you know, other games like League of Legends, you can give skins.
They really need to add gifting skins in Heroes. This is not related, but I... really want them to be able to gift skins in Heroes, because that was it when I used to play League a lot, and I don't play League at all anymore. People ask why I don't make League videos anymore, because I don't play League. But I play Heroes a lot, like every single day. I'm terrible. It's fine. But I think all the time to myself, like, I would love to just grab my friend a skin, like, especially when they're on sale. I would love to just spend $3-4 and get my friend a skin for a champion that they play all the time. Like, I would do that. I would definitely do that, because I'm an impulse buyer, and I'm also horrible, and when I have a little extra money, I always put it on my battle.net balance, so that when I want something, I don't have to think about whether, you know, oh, do I have the money for this? I already put it there. So it's something I would really like them to do. Gifting would be a great idea. I would also like to see those features be available from in-game, even if they prompt you to log out afterwards and stuff. I think that... Yeah,
that was really confusing when they're like, oh, the in-game shop has expanded, but if you're logged in, it won't work.
Yeah, it won't work. You have to be on the character. Because I messaged Perk frantic this morning. Perk, it doesn't work. What are you talking about?
PTR.
Is it on the PTR? I don't understand. She's like, no, Danielle, it's a character screen. Calm yourself. It'll be fine. So I would definitely like to see that. And you just said Bright Paw. I would love for Bright Paw to come out.
I know. I looked at the Mystic Rune Saber and then the Bright Paw pet, and if you're not sure what Bright Paw is, we have a video on the channel. It's super cute.
Yeah, it's
like
really
matchy
adorable.
And neon purple.
It's like baby. They did such a good job with the baby animals, like making them actually look like cubs as opposed to adult cats. Because I feel like that's something in old WoW, like when pets weren't really all that popular, there wasn't that definitive, like all the cats were
scary.
Cats. Yeah. And they called them, kittens, but they were just a small cat. They didn't really do anything to make them like babies.
Yeah, like the Dunmara one, the snowy cub is really cute, but it's got like fangs that are sharp and face is kind of scary looking.
Yeah, they tried though. They tried. So that's a cool thing that is
I also wonder if the WoW token, like maybe if the WoW token eventually could be used for some of the character services.
I would like to be able to trade the WoW token in game as well. Like, I would like to be able to gift a WoW token.
Yeah, I think that would be, I mean, if you can gift a BattleNet card and then that can be used to purchase, game time, it would be neat to have an in-game equivalent for that too.
Yeah, an in-game equivalent of time, or to be able to purchase a token for gold and give it to your friend. Like, I'm not suggesting that you'd be able to sell it. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? But, like, it wouldn't be terrible. Like, that happened the other day where I was like, I'll give you money for a token. Like, that's crappy. I would rather just give them the token. I don't
Yeah,
I
it
don't
just
know
sounds
why.
more exciting too. Like
Yeah.
giveaways. It's like, oh, we're gonna give away a plushie versus we're gonna give you this
Gift
card
to
and
buy
then
a
you can buy the
plushie.
plushie.
Yeah,
that's sort of not fun.
Yeah, it's not nearly as fun. So yeah, in-game shop things, those are happening. Also, Hellfire Citadel got nerfed to the ground on normal. Yep. My God.
I mean, well, maybe nerfed isn't the right word. It's not like the abilities are there but weak. They just got abilities removed.
That's nerfing.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not like, oh, you know, this thing doesn't hit for anything. It's just like, the ability is now gone.
I mean, that's not a nerf hammer. That's a nerf jackhammer.
Yeah.
It's like
an eraser.
They LFR'd normal. Like, yeah. I kind of get it, but then I really don't. Because, okay, and here comes unpopular Panzer opinion, so brace yourselves. Also, disclaimer, this is my opinion, not Wowhead's opinion. So don't hold this against Wowhead. I don't think that people who need mechanics to be that easy, to the point where it is almost LFR, should be getting the achievements that people who actually are putting serious time and serious dedication in. Like, if you want to be a raider, fine. If you don't want to be a raider, fine. But you shouldn't get the rewards of a raider if you're not.
Do you think that they'll be trying to nerf it? I mean, not nerf the encounters more, but that we won't see as many cool things available on normal difficulty? Like, suppose they took away the ability to get a mount on normal.
You shouldn't be able to get a mount on normal, not if it's that easy. And you shouldn't, I think the gear should be worse, too, because I don't think the gear difference is that big between normal and heroic for how big the difficulty difference is.
Yeah, because, I mean, normal right now has the set bonuses that are powerful, like heroic and mythic, while LFR is meant to be easy, so it has the boring ones. So, you know, maybe normal should also have...
I don't understand the point of crazy easy normal and LFR. I don't see the point. Like, why nerf normal to the point of it being... It's almost equivalent to LFR.
Yeah, just to jump back and present Blizzard's opinion in case you are... this isn't my opinion, this is me just reading what the lead game designer said. Their angle was that... we certainly haven't consistently been successful in doing this, but as we reflect on how normal difficulty has turned out, we'd rather remove mechanics from normal difficulty entirely than leave them in but make them non-threatening so they can be ignored entirely. The latter approach hurts clarity because you look at an encounter and see 3 or 4 mechanics, but there may actually only be 1 or 2 that you truly need to worry about. Removing mechanics from normal also means that, in effect, going from normal to heroic now introduces some additional mechanics, just as going from heroic to mythic always has. This adds additional depth to the experience of learning a boss on a higher difficulty, rather than just having the same encounter with larger numbers. It might be better if the difficulty and complexity gap between normal and heroic were comparable to the gap between heroic and mythic, and it hasn't been the case. So I think all that makes sense, but... you know, that you still have your question unanswered of, okay, well, normal now got a lot easier, and the rewards now seem too good for normal difficulty. I
really hate being that guy, though. That's like, I don't want other people to have gear. I don't want other people to have stuff, because that's not what it is. It's really not that. It's just that when you, like... I know that a lot of people on the internet really like to discredit other people's achievements. And I know my guild isn't, like, crazy progressed or anything like that. But we're 13 out of 13 heroic, and we just downed our first mythic boss last night. And we worked really hard for that. Like, I understand we're not world first by any means. We're not best on our server. It's not like that. But we still worked really hard for that. And even the achievement Time is a Flat Circle was difficult for us. I mean, we all have ahead of the curve now, but Time is a Flat Circle was tough. And now Time is a Flat Circle is not tough, and that bothers me. It bothers me that we worked a lot harder for that than other people are going to.
Yeah, and it's also like, okay, so now that normal is easy, I get the normal heroic to mythic progression and how you want to keep adding abilities in, but it's like you're saying, like, how does LFR fit into this if LFR and normal...
I guess I don't understand what the point of LFR is. Like, why not just
they feel very similar right now.
Like, why not just make normal be able... Like, okay, like, you start... I don't know. I feel like, what's the point of LFR if normal's that easy? Like, of course, then again, maybe they're phasing out LFR!
Yeah,
Maybe they're getting rid of LFR. That would be amazing. I would be 100%... Because LFR, I feel like it was a great idea in theory. but because you don't have to have any sort of connection with anybody that you're playing with, even in a pug, you're in TeamSpeak, you get to know these people a little bit.
Yeah, there's not a lot of pride with it as well. Like, it's so easy to the point where you're just like, oh, I'll just wait for more wipes and determination, and it doesn't actually make you want to improve. If you make a mistake, everyone yells at you, or if you don't care, you can just AFK, and no one can hold you accountable for being rude. And if you do, well, it's just like, oh, I didn't get the loot I get, and I've wasted so much time here, and there's, you don't really want to go back, you just want to do LFR to have it be done with, and there's no, like, replay value, it's not really enjoyable, there's no social connection. Like, a lot of the BC stuff we were talking about, like, you would wipe way longer than LFR, but you were doing that with friends in a guild.
Or even,
and
even
had
if you
more
pubbed,
connections
though,
that
they
way.
were all, like, people on your server, and you had to know these people, and you could get reputation on your server for being, like, if you,
really good,
you, like,
really good or really
they,
bad.
like, knew you weren't, you know what I mean, you were a team player and stuff like that. I mean, if this step of nerfing normal this hard, it leaves this question of, like, why is LFR in existence? Like, why not make it so that you can start a normal group, and then rather than having to manually pug it, you can like list your group. Like, what with the group finder, I don't see the point of LFR. It's just lazy. It's that's so lazy. It's so
like,
easy to find a pug.
Like, came in, Group Finder didn't even exist when LFR came out. Like,
it was
really bad at the start.
Group Finder came out I remember it came out in Trial of the Crusade. And LFR didn't come out until Deathwing. Deathwing was... right.
But, like, Group Finder, like, the UI for raids was not very good, because I remember with Mists of Pandaria, they enabled it for the Celestials, and it was like, well, if you go into this window and you click this tab and you click this menu, you can now queue up for things that are larger than a dungeon. Yeah. And it didn't seem very good. But now with the revamp, how it's so easy to find groups, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's so easy to list groups, and if they're saying they want normal to be outdated for casual people and friends and family, then you could queue up your small guild. You could queue up 6 or 7 people in your roles, fill them from people on connected servers and stuff like that, and maybe actually grow in a social environment the way the game used to be, the way the game is meant to be played. LFR is not the way that WoW is meant to be played.
I also remember at one BlizzCon a few years ago, they were kind of previewing the group finder. This is before the new UI existed. It was, I think, 2 BlizzCons ago. And they were talking about how maybe there would be incentives to, I don't know, you get what, like, happiness points? I forget the title. But it was basically some sort of currency that would reward you for doing things with people repeatedly, so you'd form some sort of connection. Yeah. And, I think maybe that was, like, you get more Valor points, but then that currency got deleted, so that, there's no incentive right now to actually want to do LFR repeatedly with friends. There's no benefit to being social or trying to forge a connection there. But I've had a lot of fun using Group Finder. Like, I wrote that guide last week being like, hey, I got my mounts with Group Finder, and I got my title, and this and that.
A lot of people recruit for their guild in Group Finder, too. Yeah. Like, say they're a guild that has consistently 15 people. They will specifically ask for people that are interested in possibly joining guild. And honestly, if you're pugging heroics, or even normals before they got nerfed to the center of the earth, but, if you were someone who was pugging heroics, you probably didn't have a guild that was running heroics.
Yeah, and LFR is so toxic, I just feel that it just breeds a lot of bad behavior, and there's no way to keep it in check. Like, I know with heroes, they're trying ways to deal with bad behavior, but LFR is just, like, people upset or AFK or not trying hard or just yelling at each other.
Yeah, I just saw someone in chat who said, as someone who's a big PvPer that does not have really time to raid, that's why they like LFR. And if you, honestly, you can find a group just as quickly with Group Finder. Like, without using the LFR interface where you queue up, you might wait longer in queue than you would manually going and queuing up using the Group Finder tool to get into a normal, and you would at least have fun.
Yeah, I think maybe improving the UI for Group Finder so it looks as easy as the LFR Group Finder would be good. If they
I don't think it's hard, though.
No, I don't think it is either, but, I mean, I know that the UI improvements in Worlds of Draenor were great for the Group Finder, so if they can do that even more to drive people to do that, to phase out LFR, I would not. I would like that.
I would like that, too, because then I feel like if you do have the people that are even willing to take that 3-4 minutes to go find a group and list themselves and whisper people and, like, to do normal. And I would assume that now that normal is easier, the expectations for the people who would be queuing up for normal would be lower. I mean,
I also liked having 3 difficulties, like going back to Cataclysm, it was, LFR, normal, heroic, and now it's like LFR, normal, heroic, mythic.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's like you're on a treadmill, like going up and up and up this mountain.
Yeah, it feels like a lot, and it feels like very segregating as well. Yeah. Like, and there's a lot of groups. Like, it's like there are people who do LFR, and then normals don't want LFRs in their group, and heroics don't want normals in their group, and this, that, and it's like this. At least if there were 3, it would streamline it a little bit. I'm just pro getting rid of LFR because I think I've been saying it for years. I think LFR really destroyed a big social aspect of WoW.
Yeah. I mean, we're not saying that we want to get rid of an easy way for people to see raids. We're just... Yeah. The way LFR is implemented has a lot of problems.
And if normal is this easy and now we have this great group finder tool, I don't really see the purpose for LFR the way it functions currently.
How it's in Warlords, like, your gear doesn't look as cool as other people's gear. And I know people in Mists of Pandaria, they would consider doing LFR to get alternate recolors of gear, even if they had better gear, for transmog.
Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, did I even do this raid? Like, it ties in a feeling of, feeling pride. It's like, oh, I got this epic, but it looks like my garrison epic. Like, I'm not even meant to feel like I'm sitting at the big kids table or that I'm really raiding.
Yeah, so I don't know. I looked a lot when Draenor came out and there was that huge spike in subscribers. I looked a lot at subscriber numbers and the correlating things that happened around those subscriber numbers. And LFR was when there was the first loss of players. That actually lines up perfectly. Because LFR was
and they were talking about, like, getting people
out
of your garrison more. And it's like, well, like, encourage people to be social. Don't just have it be your garrison and then you queue up into this faceless LFR queue and get your item and go back to your garrison.
And Tanan was a good band-aid for that. I mean, Tanan, when Tanan first came out, there were tons of people in Tanan, but as soon as they got, their Draenor flying, as soon as they got their exalted reputations that they wanted to get, nobody's really in Tanan anymore, unless they're doing it on alts or something. So it didn't really give a permanent solution to the problem, only a temporary one. Like, a better permanent solution would have been, like, taking all the world bosses, buffing them, and giving them heroic Hellfire Citadel level loot. That gets people out of their garrisons minimum, 3-4 times a week to go do all the world bosses.
Yeah, because we just talked about how the dungeons all felt obsolete, and it's like, are you people doing Draw of the Ruiner now?
No, like, people aren't doing any of the world. I thought maybe we would see more people doing the Rookmar. Is that her name?
Yeah, I sometimes see her in Group Finder because she has the mount.
Once in a while, but not as prominent as I thought it would be, given that now it's easy to get there. So but if they buffed all the loot on those, people would do it.
Yeah, like for the legendary questline of Mists of Pandaria, in contrast, you had to do all 4 Celestials, and, people were doing them a lot on the Timeless Isle. And then when you got your legendary item, you had Ordos, who had the really good loot, which was, like, heroic quality. It was like, 559 or something.
It was good, and it said Warforged on it, so it looked really, like, when you saw it, you're like, this is... Was it Warforged that it said, or was it Timewarped?
No, it was Warforged.
It was Warforged.
So you're like, oh, I got the best version of this item for the difficulty. I feel good.
It looked really cool. I don't know. I would love to... I swear, half of our conversation is just how they could keep people a little more interested. Yeah. But, anyways... Those are the Hellfire Citadel nerfs. They happened. There's also a few things coming next week. Just a reminder, there is no show next week because I'll be at Comic-Con, so I won't be here to do all the behind-the-scenes techie things. So we'll have
in 2 weeks. We should have a really good show.
Yeah, in 2 weeks we'll have a really good show. But a couple things that we're going to miss because I'm not going to be here is... that the Dark Moon Fair begins on Sunday. There's nothing really new coming to the Dark Moon Fair, but recently the Dark Moon Seesaw was added, and there's tons of pets and toys that you can get via Dark Moon tickets and races and stuff like that. Also, the Apexis bonus event begins on the 7th, where you get the Sign of Apexis buff, which increases the amount of Apexis from Draenor mobs that you will be able to loot. There's also the Time to Strike quest, which is 5 Apexis objectives for 5,000 Apexis, 1,000 garrison resources, and 1,500 oil. Hopefully that won't be glitched again, or hopefully it will, whichever way you want to look at it.
If it glitches, you basically just pick up the quest and it completes. And you have to do anything.
You don't have to do anything. Yeah. And also with Apexis, you can buy 6 different pets, 6 different mounts, baleful gear, and more. So...
Yep, and we'll have some chart showing, like, which pet is the most popular, which mount is the most popular. If you're getting into it and you're like, oh, what should I buy? What seems good? What are other people getting? So yeah, look for that guide on Wednesday. Also, Brewfest ends very shortly.
The 6th.
So
yep.
if you need your mounts, not your mounts, your pets or your toys, go do those ram races.
Yep.
They're all account wide. So if a number seems overwhelming, do them on a bunch of characters, and you should be able to get them in a few days because they're like 100 or 150 each.
Yeah, they're not bad. Also, before we get into these 2 highlights that we have to talk about, now's a good time to ask questions. So if you have any questions, please ask them now in the chat, and we will talk a little bit about these next couple things. The first thing is super exciting. So, of course, BlizzCon is coming up, and Perk and I were approached by Freenode, and she wanted to make us BlizzCon badge art, which we were really excited about, and we wanted to share it with you guys.
They're so cool.
Oh, so good.
I love how they're so different, but they represent each of us really well. So, you're like the shaman, you've got the pink, wallpaper that says Horde, you've got the bubbles, you've got the cute frog, you're, taking a picture with a selfie, and you've got your, your glasses on, and, my character's smirking, and she's got the warglaive you see in all the screenshots, and her favorite tier 8 set, and she looks really angry. So, just did such a good job of them capturing her personality and the stuff that we really wanted to be in the badge. I am really happy with it.
Yeah, I'm really happy with mine too. What's funny is I gave this poor girl no direction whatsoever. Like, she was like, oh, can you tell me all these things? And I was so busy at the time that I just sent her a screenshot, and I was like, I really like this. And she was like, okay. And then when she sent me the rough draft, she's like, I took some artistic liberties, and I was like, I love it so much. I really like it a lot, and I really like that it says shaman, and it's, even though she's a panda, there's no confusing whether she's Horde or Alliance. I love the little frog. I thought that was a really cute touch because I'm a shaman, so I can hex, but then also I have a huge pet collection. And I thought the bubbles were adorable too, especially because I don't even think she knew this, but I have some bad history with the bubble wand.
I also like how it looks like you just dropped a bunch of healing grid and you're like, oh, sorry, have to take a selfie, deal with the healing. It's pretty
typical. Yeah. It sounds about like what I would do. So I really like it all. I love yours too. I really like how she looks like she's about to murder someone and laugh about it.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many little details. I didn't know if I wanted a rogue frame or a demon hunter frame, so I sort of went the opposite direction. I gave her so many details. I'm like, here's, if you want to read more, here's my backstory, but this is how I see Perk, so can we get something in between a rogue and a demon hunter? And, like, she's really friendly and clever, but she murders a lot of people, so she should look friendly, but like also smirking. And she did a really good job with the glaive. I love how she drew it really detailed.
It looks
and she
in
blurred
motion.
It.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say it really looks like you are swinging it. It looks awesome.
Yeah, and the shoulder pads are fun too because they flicker and they do these pink blades. Yep. And she decided to capture them in motion and get the really unique glow effects. And when I take screenshots in game, I will wait for those effects to happen because I'm going to flicker for a second. So I really appreciated how she took the time to research what they look like and made them work with everything going on.
Yeah, it looks great. They look really, really good. I think I find it's just so ridiculous. I just love it so much. I can't believe giving her no direction that she came out with something that fantastic. The only thing I asked her to do was make my gear match because I have a transmog set that kind of matches, but not really. Right. So I just asked her to color it so that it all looked like one set, and she did such an amazing job. And if you guys are interested in Warcraft art or anything like that, her name is Freenode on Twitter, Frenone. And then also, we talked a little bit about this last week, but we have new, is it this button? Yeah, there they are. We have new Alliance and Horde leggings from Wild Bangarang. The fell ones that you see in the first picture are the ones that we wore last week and did a terrible job trying to show off to you guys. The middle ones are obviously the Alliance ones, which Perk has, and they're awesome. You can't see it in her picture, but there's like this big belt thing on the waist.
Yeah, and there's like lions on it. We'll have pictures in the article.
They're awesome.
All, like, lions. And I like how these two look like real armor.
Yeah. Yeah, the ones that I'm wearing are the Horde ones, and you can't see it in this picture, but on the back there's like fur, so they look just very, very Horde, and they have Horde symbols on the sides, and it looks like you're wearing like chainmail or dragon scale with like big pieces of like plate, and I thought that these ones particularly were really good for the time being. They look very Warlords of Draenor. That looks like a piece of gear you would get right now. So I appreciated that. And we've got those linked all over our Twitters and stuff, and it's just wild bangerang, exactly how you'd think that would be spelled. So let's check out the questions that people have been asking us in Twitch.
Also, my screen got really bright because I think they cut down and landscaped some trees, so now I have more lighting, and I will fix that next week. I just looked and I'm like, whoa, I am very white.
Yeah, oh, well, that's basically me. Every day, it's not an illusion, it's just how I look. What are you most looking forward to at BlizzCon?
I want to hear more about... Well, we don't really know the schedule yet, but I would like them to cover more artifact weapons and the Demon Hunter backstory and what abilities they get. And also the Wowhead party, because that is the day before, and it's awesome, and we have like 4 times the amount of space.
I know!
So many things going on.
I know! I'm also excited for the Wowhead party, and I'm excited to find out when Legion is coming. And I'm excited for a thing that I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about yet, but I'll let you know as soon as I can. And... the next question was, do upgrades for the legendary rings still drop in normal despite normal being nerfed?
I think they do, but I mean that sort of ties into our thing. If normal is LFR quality, why are people looting this awesome thing from normal? Not fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with the person who said that was BS. Totally is. Have you ever considered bringing a hardcore male raider onto the show?
I don't even know.
I just read that one without proofreading it first, and I'm sorry for that. I mean, I don't really know how to address that. We do guest sometimes. I mean, we had Watcher on our show recently, so it's not like we don't.
He designs the raids. Yeah,
I would call him a hardcore raider guy. But yeah, I mean, this is our show, darn it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's someone people want to recommend, that's fine. I used to raid really hardcore before I got this job. We highlight guides by method every week that we talk about.
Diane's downed Mythic Archimon too.
Yeah, our guide writer has, cleared every...
but she's a girl, so she doesn't count. Yeah, I mean, we would definitely be interested in doing more guests for sure, though. We're always bothering Blizzard. Hey, you guys want to come on our show? Do you have time to come on our show? But they're just all busy all the time. It's lame. But yeah, so we have interviewed people in the past, though, and hopefully we'll be able to snag some interviews at BlizzCon, and it's certainly not out of the question. It's just our normal format show is basically...
Yeah, the question was just worded a bit funny. Yeah.
We giggled. Yeah. Bring the cookie lady on the show. Bring Diane. Okay.
She was on the show, actually. We had her talking about healers, when the Worlds of Draenor pre-patch came out, because she wrote all the healing guides then. Mm-hmm. So, we'd love to have her back on the show if she wants to talk about, the trials and, progressing through a mythic guild, or what bosses she thought, were difficult or hard, or healing in general, or cookies. So, we can consider that, especially if...
I want cookies.
If
she gives us enough
sometimes
cookies.
There's not a lot of news going on every week, so...
it's hard when we do stuff like that, though, because we don't know. Like, we could, say that seems like a slow news week, so we plan to have a guest on. Like,
exactly.
Like, a PTR patch could drop out of nowhere, and then we're just in this really poor position.
So like Dragon Con, I was like, we have no news. What are we going to do? And it's like,
It was like the day before the show. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was not cool. Not cool. I'm scrolling through, and I don't see any... I'm looking. When will the Legion art contest winner be drawn?
So the contest, the entries close the evening of October 17th, and we'll do a little bit of verifying that people submitted their own artwork, and we'll try to get in touch with people pretty soon after that. There are different people judging it. It's not just me. That would be weird if it was just me, because I'm reaching out to a lot of people. So that would be kind of weird and biased, because I know who a lot of people are that are doing it. But it would be pretty soon, because the serious entries, including ones that aren't winners but that are still cool, we want to display at BlizzCon. So, we'd be getting in touch and saying, are you okay with this? What name should we put? What's the title? All those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds good. So if you have any additional questions that we didn't answer, feel free to leave them in the comment section of our YouTube video, because we upload the VODs of this show every Saturday morning. So if you missed it live, you can watch it then. But if you do want to watch it live, we do this Friday at 6 p.m. at twitch.tv/6
p.m.
Wowhead Eastern. Yep. And
now that I'm Pacific.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's so weird. That's got to be so
Yeah.
weird for you. I'm sorry.
It is weird. Yeah.
3, 6, you know.
Yeah.
Also, we want to take a moment just to thank everybody who has subscribed to the Wowhead Twitch channel. We really appreciate it. That helps out the show a little bit, and it also gives you some cool icons that you can use, a little Pepe and a rocket, and the more subscribers we get, the more emotes we can get, so we really appreciate that. Also, if you want to support the show and you also use Wowhead a lot, you can subscribe to Wowhead Premium, which removes all of the ads from Wowhead, which is amazing, but additionally it lets you track quests, it lets you sort Today in Draenor, it lets you get a special color when you're talking, other stuff.
Yeah, lots of other stuff. You can track like everything in your bag. Lots of other perks. You can see images when you mouse over tooltips. So lots of things that you can get. And we really appreciate it because we love making awesome features and growing the site for you.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody who follows us on Twitch and subscribes to us on YouTube and doesn't miss a video. We appreciate that. I hope that you guys all have a wonderful weekend. And we will see you
in 2 weeks.
Not next Friday, but the Friday after that. In 2 weeks.
Yep.
Same bat channel still, though. Not same bat time, I guess. But, well, hey, we're working on it. So, nice 2-week show in 2 weeks. And hopefully I'll see some of you guys at Comic-Con. If you are going to Comic-Con, I will be, the majority of the time, I will be at the Mega booth. You know, like Mega Bloks, World of Warcraft stuff, all fun.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think they make the WoW stuff anymore, which is stupid. I will talk to them about that.
Yes,
that is an atrocity. But yeah, so I'll be at the Mega booth the majority of the time. So if you're gonna be at New York Comic Con, I would love to see you there. Follow me on Twitter because I'll be like tweeting out where I am because I think I'm gonna go to the Loot Crate booth for a little while too. But yeah, so we're gonna go. I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Where's the button? There it is.